Have you ever stopped and asked yourself a simple question? Why does it feel like the harder you try, the less you are truly wanted? Not ignored completely, not rejected outright, but never fully chosen. There is a pattern most men experience, but rarely question deeply. You give more, you try harder, you show more interest, and yet something still slips away quietly. You replay moments in your head, wondering where things changed, but the truth is, it didn't happen in one moment. It was happening all along. You were taught to believe that effort creates attraction, that chasing, impressing, and proving yourself would make someone value you. On the surface, it sounds right. Effort feels like strength, attention feels like care. But when you look deeper, chasing sends a different message. It tells the other person that they are above you, that they hold something you lack, that you need them more than they need you. And that quiet sense of need is where attraction begins to fade. Most men don't lose attraction because they are not good enough. They lose it because they become emotionally dependent on the outcome. They start checking their phone too often, overthinking small delays, reading into every word. Slowly, their behavior changes, their tone shifts, their presence becomes uncertain. And uncertainty weakens attraction. Not loudly, not instantly, but gradually. The truth is, attraction is not built on what you say. It is built on how you exist, on your emotional stability, your calmness, your ability to stay grounded even when things are unclear. A man who cannot control his reactions becomes unpredictable in a way that feels unstable, not exciting. And stability is what creates a sense of comfort and trust. When there is silence, when there is space, most men rush to fill it. They text again, explain more, try harder. But that effort often comes from fear, fear of losing, fear of not being enough. And fear has an energy that cannot be hidden. It shows in your timing, your words, your actions. Once that energy is felt, respect begins to fade. And without respect, attraction cannot survive. A man who is centered within himself moves differently. He doesn't chase, not because he is playing games, but because he doesn't need to. There is a calmness in him, a quiet confidence. He is not trying to win someone over. He is simply living his life with direction, and not creates something powerful. His attention has value. His presence feels intentional. His absence creates curiosity. Instead of asking if he is enough, he observes and decides what deserves his time. That shift changes everything, because now he is not reacting, he is choosing. And a man who chooses rather than seeks approval naturally becomes more attractive. Purpose plays a huge role in this. A man with direction is not chasing validation. He is focused on building something meaningful in his life. His world does not revolve around one person, and because of that, he does not lose himself trying to keep someone. Most men make this mistake. They shift their priorities, give up their focus, and slowly make someone else the center of their world. At first, it feels like care, but over time, it creates imbalance. When you lose your sense of self, you lose the very thing that made you attractive, your independence, your clarity, your identity. But a man who remains grounded in his path carries a different energy. He is not trying to impress. He is not trying to prove anything. He is simply being who he is, and that authenticity creates ease. Ease is what allows attraction to grow, not pressure, not constant effort, not intensity, just a natural flow that comes from emotional stability and self-control. When a woman feels that, she does not feel overwhelmed or pressured. She feels curious. She feels safe to open up. She feels drawn without knowing exactly why. This is the shift most men need to understand. Attraction is not about doing more. It is about becoming someone who does not need to chase at all. When you are grounded, when you know your worth, when you are not dependent on someone else's response, everything changes. Because the moment you stop chasing, you stop losing. There is something most men misunderstand about attraction. They believe it is something they can build through effort alone. through saying the right words, giving constant attention, and always being available. But attraction does not respond to effort the way you think it does. It responds to presence. And presence is not about how often you show up. It is about the energy you bring when you do. A man who is always available, always responding instantly, always adjusting himself around someone else, slowly loses something important. Not because he's doing something wrong on the surface, but because he removes the very tension that creates curiosity. When everything about you becomes predictable, there is no space left for anticipation. When your attention is always guaranteed, it begins to lose its weight. Think about it carefully. If someone knows they can reach you at any moment, that you will always reply quickly, that you will always make time no matter what are they really experiencing? Comfort, yes, but not intrigue. Familiarity, yes, but not excitement. And attraction needs that slight sense of the unknown, that quiet curiosity that makes someone wonder about you. This is where many men unknowingly push attraction away. They believe that opening up quickly, sharing everything about themselves, and being completely transparent from the start will create a deeper connection. But what often happens is the opposite. When everything is revealed too soon, there's nothing left to discover. The natural process of learning about someone, layer by layer, disappears. And when that process disappears, so does the excitement that comes with it. It is not about hiding who you are or playing games. It is about allowing who you are to unfold gradually in a way that feels natural and real. Attraction grows in layers, not all at once. It develops through moments, small glimpses that reveal something deeper each time. When you show everything too quickly, you remove the journey. And people value the journey more than the destination. They value what they slowly understand, what they feel they are discovering on their own. That is why restraint is so powerful. Not silence without reason, but intentional presence. Knowing when to speak, how much to share, and when to simply let the moment exist without forcing it forward. At the same time, there is something even deeper being observed in every interaction: your emotional control. Life will always bring uncertainty. People will behave in ways you do not expect. Situations will not always go as planned. And in those moments, your reaction reveals everything about you. Most men react instantly. They question too quickly, explain too much, or seek reassurance when they feel unsure. But these reactions often come from a place of inner instability. A man who is grounded does not move like that. He does not rush to react. He takes a moment. He observes. He understands that not every feeling needs to be expressed immediately, and not every silence needs to be filled with words. There is strength in that pause. There is power in choosing your response instead of being controlled by your emotions. Because emotions come and go, but your state should remain steady. When you develop that control, it reflects in everything about you. The way you speak becomes calmer, your body language becomes more relaxed, your presence feels more stable, and that stability creates a sense of comfort that cannot be faked. A man who is easily shaken, who reacts to every small change, cannot create that feeling. And without that feeling of stability, attraction becomes fragile. Silence plays a much bigger role than most men realize. Many feel uncomfortable with silence, so they rush to fill it with conversation, jokes, or explanations. But silence is not empty, it is space. And in that space, something important happens. Thoughts begin to form, feelings begin to grow, curiosity begins to build. When you constantly fill every moment, you remove that space. And without space, there is no room for deeper connection. This is why patience matters so much, not as a strategy, not as something you pretend to have, but as a natural state. When you are patient, you are not waiting anxiously. You are allowing things to unfold at their own pace. You are not trying to force outcomes or control every detail, and that creates a completely different energy. You become more relaxed, more natural, more real. When you stop forcing things, something shifts. You stop overthinking every small action. You stop trying to manage how you are perceived. Instead, you begin to simply exist as you are. And not authenticity creates ease. And ease is what allows attraction to grow without pressure. Because at the end of it all, people are not drawn to the one who tries the hardest, they are drawn to the one who feels the most grounded, the most calm, and the most certain within himself. That certainty does not come from pretending to be confident. It comes from knowing that you are not dependent on any single outcome, that you are not chasing validation or approval, that you are not trying to prove your worth. And when you reach that state, your presence alone begins to carry weight. Not because you are doing more, but because you are no longer trying so hard at all. A man reaches a point where he stops trying to prove his worth to others. He realizes that effort alone does not create attraction or respect. All the messages, all the gestures, all the attempts to earn approval fall short if they come from a place of need. True power lies in understanding one's own value, in walking through life with quiet confidence, and in refusing to compromise on what matters most. When a man understands this, he stops chasing and starts choosing. Choosing for oneself requires clarity. It requires knowing what is acceptable and what is not, understanding where energy should be invested and where it should be withdrawn. Many men stay attached to connections that drain them, thinking that persistence will eventually earn respect or affection. But attachment without boundaries is weakness disguised as effort. Trying to force something that resists you does not create desire, it destroys it. Strength comes from detachment, from the ability to remain calm while letting go of what no longer serves you. Detachment is not indifference, it is quiet power. It is understanding that life moves in cycles, that not every connection is meant to stay, and that forcing outcomes diminishes your energy. A man who masters detachment observes rather than reacts. He notices patterns instead of isolated events, and he responds with calm thoughtfulness instead of impulsive emotion. This steadiness is magnetic. People are drawn to the calm authority of a man who is unshaken by drama, a man who values himself enough to walk away from what diminishes him. Presence becomes his greatest tool. He stands firmly in his own space, fully aware of himself and his surroundings. He does not chase attention, nor does he seek validation. Instead, he focuses on what matters, his growth, his values, and his purpose. By being present and grounded, he naturally attracts those who resonate with his energy, those who respect his boundaries and appreciate his steadiness. Attraction is no longer a game, it becomes a natural consequence of who he is. Solitude transforms from something feared into something empowering. Being alone is no longer a sign of loneliness, but a state of strength. In solitude, he reconnects with his goals, with his ambitions, and with his own desires. He observes more than he speaks, he listens more than he judges, and he invests in relationships that are reciprocal rather than one-sided. Life becomes quieter, more clear, and more purposeful. Fewer people, but deeper connections. He no longer seeks constant reassurance because he is self-sufficient emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. Over time, this way of living changes everything. He no longer needs to be chosen because he has chosen himself. He walks away from situations that do not align with his values without anger or desperation. He understands that leaving with grace communicates more strength than clinging ever could. And in doing so, he cultivates respect, not by demanding it, but by demonstrating it in his actions, in his calm, and in the integrity of his choices. Women and people in general naturally gravitate toward this energy. They sense that he is in control of himself and his life. They are drawn to his confidence, his clarity, and the quiet authority he exudes. He doesn't manipulate, chase, or perform. He simply exists fully, and that presence becomes irresistible. A man like this does not need to prove his worth. His life, his boundaries, and his values speak for him. This transformation is not instantaneous. It requires reflection, patience, and consistent practice. It requires standing firm in your principles while allowing life to unfold around you. It requires patience, self-discipline, and the courage to let go of what does not serve your highest good. But when mastered, it changes everything: how you see yourself, how others see you, and how you navigate relationships. The man who has mastered himself becomes the man who is naturally pursued, respected, and admired, not because he chases, but because he lives fully, unapologetically, and with purpose. The final truth is simple: attraction is a byproduct of value, respect is a byproduct of self respect. And the man who walks through life with clarity, detachment, and unwavering focus on his purpose will always find that people, opportunities, and relationships align naturally with his energy. He does not chase, he does not plead, he simply lives, and in living fully, he becomes unstoppable, magnetic, and inevitably pursued.